Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Monday, December 8th. Thanks for being there, and thanks for watching on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. Eric Engels will join us at Sportsnet in just a couple of minutes. Montreal Canadiens weekend. They were in Toronto on Saturday night. They went 2-1 in a shootout. Big night for Jakub Dobes. Big night for Noah Dobson, Mike Matheson, Cole Caufield, Lane Hutson, and company. And the Canadiens play a very, very mature game in Toronto. On Sunday, they play an immature game. Offensively, they were very good. Defensively, and how they managed the puck and some of the decisions they took came back to bite them. And the Canadiens got a taste of their own medicine because it was a very opportunistic St. Louis Blues team that scored 4 goals on just 18 shots. Jakub Dobes also started versus the St. Louis Blues because at 5 p.m. it was announced that Samuel Montembeault would miss the game because he was under the weather. Capo Kakinen was brought up, but it was Dobes who got the start. Monday, an off day for the Montreal Canadiens. They'll be back at it tomorrow night when they host the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's a huge divisional matchup, one of those prototypical 4-point games. We'll talk about what's going right with the Canadiens, what's not going right, what we can fix, and how they expect to do for the rest of the month of December, which will play out to be a very, very key month in how far the Canadiens are going to go, I guess. It's something that we're going to discuss with Eric Engels. I'm Marinaro.
It's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K,
All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro,
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
the sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment, like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant, et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Monday, December 8th. Apologies in advance because in all transparency, this is what my weekend was like. I came in from Fort Lauderdale. Flight was supposed to leave Fort Lauderdale last night at 9 p.m., and I was supposed to be in bed by 1 o'clock in the morning. Flight ended up leaving a couple of minutes shy of midnight, and I ended up getting to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning instead of getting to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. So on this Monday, there was a 15-minute radio hit. There was another 30-minute radio hit. There was a 15-minute television hit. There was a podcast that went on for 2 hours and 15 minutes in French earlier this morning. This one is going to be abbreviated. We're looking at about 40 minutes, give or take, but I'll give you my best in those 40 minutes. So thanks for being with us, watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Sick Podcast brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, a leading asset like 3PL. It's driven to be different from cross-border freight between Canada, USA, and Mexico. Coast-to-coast shipping in both Canada and the United States. Energy moves it all. Fast, reliable, powered by tech that delivers smarter logistics. Need a real partner in transportation? Contact the team at sick@shipenergy.com. See how Energy Transportation Group is changing the freight game. If you're hungry for a deal, eat well at Playground without breaking the bank. Mondays, get a free rotisserie chicken meal. Tuesday, get a free burger with your choice of side. How? First, accumulate 50 reward points on any machine any day of the week. Next, visit guest services, player rewards, or any cashier to have your free rotisserie chicken voucher and your free burger voucher printed. Now you're ready to eat for free. Just bring the appropriate voucher to the rail on the following Monday and on Tuesday. Also brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi. They launched their new Ultra Lager, refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for those chilly winter days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light, ultra refreshing. Without further ado, let's bring him in. He's at the Board of Governors meetings in Colorado Springs. Eric Engels, how are you?
Eric Engels, presented by Allard et Emont, experts in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation since 1977.
Yes, for nearly 50 years, Allard & Emont has set the standard for HVAC service in Montreal. Their focus is simple, unmatched quality, and dependable comfort. For your home, visit allardemont.com to learn more. Allard & Emont, experts in heating, air conditioning, and ventilation since 1977. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing great, man, and thanks for expediting the process here with me. Obviously, have some meetings to attend to with all the governors here. The Olympic conversation is raging. It's not necessarily on the agenda here, but I think a lot of the people in the room want to know what's going on with the building in Milan. Outside of that, there's some salary cap implications, some CBA implementation, all the boring, fun stuff that fans don't care as much about as they do the Montreal Canadiens and the purpose of this podcast. So I was at the game in Toronto. I went out to a sports bar to make sure I saw the game between St. Louis and Montreal last night, and I'm ready to rock, man.
Good for you. Having said that, before we get to the Canadiens, once again, where are we at with the arena in Milan? I know organizers are still confident that the arena is going to be ready. We're hearing that it's going to be 3 feet less in length, and so the neutral zone is going to be cut 3 feet short. But other than that, how about the installations? How about the bathrooms? How about the locker rooms? How about everything that comes with it? How about the quality of the ice? Talk to me about all that.
The main concern for the people here and for the NHLPA is the quality of the ice. And I think they're going to be having their people much more involved in the final stages of this process. You know, obviously it's not their responsibility. It's the IOC and the International Ice Hockey Federation to take care of business and make sure this is all ready to go so that when NHLers are playing upwards of 5 games in 2 days there, the quality of the ice holds up to the standard that's expected. Look, think about it from the owner's perspective. There's a reason they don't love shutting down the season, in the middle of it for something they don't profit from at all. There's no licensing agreement between the IOC and the NHL. There was money lost, but for the owners who shell out a lot of dollars every year. And I know nobody's crying for billionaires or this or that, but it is a business. And ultimately, they would always be concerned about their players getting hurt in games, and they're not just their players, their top players getting hurt in games where they see no benefit from as the owners of NHL teams. But they would be particularly concerned about it this time around with A, the compacted schedule because of the Olympics, and B, them going to a substandard ice surface that puts them at further risk. I was talking about with Elliot Friedman and Kyle Bukauskas here. Like, you go back to 2006 and the Sens and their run, and not having Dominik Hasek because he got hurt at the Olympics. They always felt like that was a huge loss to them that cost them potentially a Stanley Cup. You go back to John Tavares getting hurt in 2014, I think. The Islanders didn't love that. Every year, it's going to happen to somebody, right? The risk that it could happen to more people because the quality of the ice is not what it should be is a major concern. And it's a major concern for this reason, Tony. Typically, when you build an Olympic venue, the testing of that venue goes on a year prior. The fact that we are 2 months away from this tournament and the arena is not yet complete, and all the facets that you talked about, the bathrooms, the access to the arena, the seating capacity, all that stuff. If they don't have a chance to properly test it, and no matter what test they run, they're not going to be able to simulate 5 games of NHLers in 48 hours. It's a lot of concern, and there's no contingency plan. It's not up to the NHL and the NHLPA to say, you know what, we're not going there, but we're going to have games happen in North America, or we're going to go, down the road to Turin where they had the 2006 Olympics because there's an arena there. Like, it's not up to them. The only thing they decide is we're either going or we're not. So the IOC isn't making contingency plans either. They believe the arena will be ready. I spoke to somebody on one of the federations, I don't want to reveal who basically said, I think this reaction is overblown and wanting to put pressure on the people that are in charge to make sure everything gets done properly. Always have these issues going into every Olympics. This is no different. And I spoke to somebody from another federation who's, up in management for one of the teams, who said this is an absolute joke. It's an embarrassment. Like, they've known for a long time these games are coming, and for it to be in its current status is just a joke. So there's some hot temperature around all this conversation.
All right. Once again, and we'll get to Canadiens in just a second here, but seeing as we're talking about all this stuff, what are you hearing regarding playoff cap?
Yeah, listen, I think teams are concerned about it, right? We've gone from a lot of acceptance in terms of being able to replace your injured players for the full value of their hits, and then in the playoffs, reactivate players that were injured that weren't able to play during the regular season with there being no cap. Now each playoff roster has to be cap compliant. And if you don't have a player who's officially out for the year, and you've got a player who might potentially come back, say, let's look at the Florida Panthers, for instance. Barkov is out. He had an ACL, MCL injury in his knee. He's expected to miss between 6 and 9 months or whatever it is. Can they guarantee that he won't be ready to return it if the Panthers make it back to the Stanley Cup final, for instance? No. And the fact that they can't do that does not enable them to replace him between now and the trade deadline for his full value, because even if you have to address a cap compliant roster in the playoffs, you cannot make those types of replacement moves unless you have a guarantee that that player is not coming back at any point. So it's almost like a complete 180 from the world we were living in before. And I wonder if it'll stay that way, because I just think a lot of the teams are going to, one loophole was closed, but a potential mistake in the system was created to close it. I'm not guaranteeing that it is a mistake, but if you can't replace those players and you are running up against the cap and you're going to we're going to be looking at underperforming players who are making more money than what they're performing for, who are potentially sitting out games in the playoffs, whereas that never would happen before. And, I don't know, if your starting goalie makes $7 million and you're up against the cap and everybody's going and they're playing well, who are you dressing as your backup? Is it going to be the guy who's making 3.5? The teams are going to be forced into some pretty tricky decisions, and especially the ones that are already missing key pieces that they weren't able to replace. So it's we'll see where it goes.
couple of things stood out this weekend. Of course, the Canadiens win in Toronto 2-1 in a shootout. And last night, they drop a 4-3 decision to the St. Louis Blues at home. Jakub Dobeš starts both because yesterday at 5 p.m., we learned that Samuel Montembeault would miss the game because he was under the weather.
Yeah, I heard he was quite sick, by the way. I heard he was...
well, I'm happy you said that because already the conspiracy theorists came out and started in this and then all that stuff.
He's got the kind of sickness none of us want to have. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you, and Lord knows it's going around, right? And it's going around the National Hockey League, and it's going around the world. And I was under the weather last week. I had cold, cough, throat infection, on antibiotics, laryngitis, lost my voice, suppository, medication, syrup. I was taking everything basically, and it's going around, and there's more to it than that. Those are some of the symptoms. You can have more, obviously. Let's start with Dobeš on Saturday night, right? He was the image of his club, I thought he was cool. I thought he was calm. I thought he was collected. I thought he was mature. I thought he was confident. And I want to ask you how you go from that to what we saw last night, where the Canadiens were still good with the puck, but with the way they managed when they didn't have the puck, or some of the decisions they took with the puck, or some of the decisions they took with defensive zone coverage. I would want to ask you to explain it, but I guess the explanation is, it's a very young team, and these are going to be learning moments.
I think if you look at the Winnipeg and Toronto games, you see very familiar, not only outcome, but the process within those games in terms of the way the Canadiens buckle down defensively, the attention to detail that was there, the mental sharpness that was lacking in the Ottawa game, that was nowhere to be found in the Ottawa game, which I thought was their worst game of the season. Which they snapped themselves back to and gradually built on from Winnipeg to the game in Toronto. And I don't think it's so much physical fatigue coming into the St. Louis game as much as it is just how much being as sharp with those details requires your mental attention, and how quickly it can, or how easily it can slip within a couple of moments and cost you a game in a league that has become airtight in terms of the standings, no matter who you're playing. And I know St. Louis is towards the bottom of the rung, but they get a bit of confidence with a win over Ottawa before coming into Montreal. That game probably could have gone either way. It didn't, because of a 39-second slip and because Dobeš wasn't as sound as he was the night before, if you want to argue that. I'm not debating it. I just think, let me ask you a question, Tony. You look at how charged their schedule is. You look at the quality of competition. Just to go over it, they just played Ottawa, Winnipeg, Toronto, St. Louis, and are up against Tampa, travel to Pittsburgh, play New York.
I have the schedule, actually. I have the schedule if we can bring it up. Yeah,
come back to December. Play Edmonton, and then 4 games a week, back-to-back. There's almost more back-to-back situations than there are single days in between games.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, if the Habs come out of this stretch of hockey 500, just this stretch alone, and there's some pretty good teams on the schedule, teams that have done very well so far this season, including Philadelphia and Chicago and Pittsburgh, who we wouldn't have expected to be where they are. If they're 500 in just the month of December, how do you think it plays for their playoff hopes?
I think if they're 500 for the month of December, they'll make it.
It's a critical stage of the season, right? This is pedal down, and it's hard to put the pedal down and have the mental acuity and sharpness to play the way they played against Winnipeg and Toronto in those games, game after game, back to back. I'm not letting them off the hook. It wasn't a good enough performance. They did enough offensively to win the game. They were too loose and too many mental fumbles within the game to come out at the end of the game and say, we deserve to.
You got to play for 60 minutes, though. Those 2 goals in the 39-second span in period number 2. I know Marty St. Louis said we did enough to win the game. They did. They also did enough to lose the game, too.
Yeah, they didn't. Right. They did, but they didn't deserve it. And the what proves to be the winning goal is it's a cluster of a couple of bad luck situations where
Carrier caught in quicksand.
Carrier gets caught, but loses his balance. Veleno falls. Jack Eye's left defending a 2-on-1 and defends it in a way that you would never want to defend a 2-on-1. But I just, it's bang, bang. You can watch it in slow motion, break it down that way, or just say, bang, bang, and he just made the wrong call. Like
he slid across in desperation. Yeah. Trying to hope to cut off the pass.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blame him. I'm not going to blame him for that one.
Yeah. Not blaming him either. It's just like mistakes and breakdowns are going to happen. You're not going to be perfect in a game. You are going to, and like, so, okay, if your goaltender doesn't step up, how do you recover from those mistakes? What can you do? One thing I think that's been ridiculously overblown over the last week or, several days or through the Canadian struggles up until the game in Ottawa is this bullshit about the system. Guys, there's 3 ways of playing hockey in the National Hockey League, okay? The Canadiens are not reinventing the wheel with the way they play. The game against Ottawa, their effort was the poorest effort they've had all season. Defensively, not there, not mentally sharp, not alert. On one of the goals where Zub is by himself pulling a triple deke before scoring, a defenseman. If you watch Bolduc on that play, the NHL has an amazing thing on their website, Tony, where it's called the goal visualizer, where you don't watch the highlight of the play. You watch a sequence where you see the dot, a dot represents each player on the ice, and you see the movement of how that sequence was created.
Oh, I've seen that. It's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
It's a great tool because
it's fantastic
for the guys who are like, that's Caufield's fault because he didn't cover and wasn't okay. Yeah. You know what? Caufield should have adjusted when he realized Bolduc didn't have his man and put a better effort into helping. He's got his man, but the way the Canadiens play is not strict man-on-man like people think. It's a up high in the zone. You're playing a 1.5 kind of, where you're on your man, but you're not as close to him so that you're in position to help out if somebody loses theirs. Okay? It's what we refer to as a hybrid system.
Yes.
But fans, and reporters and media and whoever get somewhat confused by the terminology of hybrid. And so it's easier to say it's man on man. Yes, there's man on man,
there's hybrid, and there's zone. There's 3 ways you can defend.
There's 3 ways they can play. The Canadiens play a hybrid, but there is man on man elements within a hybrid. Okay.
Yes.
So
yes. If
you watch that goal, not only does Bolduc lose Zub, he doesn't even know for about 5 seconds that he's lost Zub. That's the type of sharp, and I'm not saying that to pick on Bolduc, by the way. That's a microcosm of how the Canadiens fell asleep in that. Okay? So I just think the shit about the system, and they're confused and they don't know. They know the system inside out, okay? And it doesn't matter if they're young or they don't have enough experience, or they know what they're supposed to do in those situations. And the talk going into
they know what they're supposed to do, but they don't always do it, right?
They don't always do it because, like I say, you've got this charge schedule, and physically, when you're a little tired, things really slip mentally, and you can't afford to have mental slips in this league. Everybody's too good. Like there's just too many players that will abuse you in those situations. You have to communicate. You can't take any element of your game for granted. It's pardon my friend, it's fucking crazy when you look at the standings right now. Look at the Eastern Conference. There's 16 teams. How are there 10 of them with 33 points? Like it's there's no margin in a given week. The New Jersey Devils started the season at 14-3, and they're sitting out of a playoff spot right now with all the injuries they've had. And it's just like they've lost 5 games in a row, and you just look at the standings and say to yourself, if you don't have your A game, the B game is hard to win with in this league. And if you go through a week where you lose 2 of 3, you go from second place to outside of a playoff spot. So that's why when I look at what's up in December and how the Canadiens are structured and what their schedule is, and everybody's going to run up against different crunches within their schedules. The Canadiens had it lighter at the beginning, and they got off to a great start and took advantage of it. This is the stretch where they have to survive. It's not the one where they have to, play 600 hockey like they have for most of the season. 500 will get them to the playoffs, I believe, if they're able to just survive this month and get to the next element of it.
I'm actually looking right now as we speak. You talked about the points in the Eastern Conference. Washington with 39, Carolina with 36, the Islanders with 35, at 34, Pittsburgh.
And those guys have all played more, right? Like
yes,
the Canadiens have played.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. At 34, Pittsburgh, Tampa, Boston, and the New York Rangers. At 33, Philly, Montreal, Detroit, New Jersey. So you got 4 teams at 34. You got 4 teams at 33. And then you have Columbus at 32, Florida, Toronto, and Ottawa at 30. You got Buffalo at 26. And you have, once again, the Capitals at 39 and the Hurricanes 36, the Islanders 35. Now, in terms of the teams that played more, the Canadiens have played 28 games. There's a couple of teams that are in front of them in the standings. We talked about the Islanders. The Islanders have played 2 more games than the Canadiens. They've played 30. Boston are ahead of the Canadiens in the standings. They've played 2 more games than the Canadiens. They've played 30. The Rangers are 1 point up on the Canadiens. The Rangers have played 1 more game more than the Canadiens. Tomorrow night versus Tampa, 2 teams that have both played 28 games. Tampa Bay has a point more than Montreal. Yeah, that's a 4-point game, Eric, if there ever was one. By the way, the Lightning announced earlier today that Andrei Vasilevskiy is out with an injury. The Lightning are in Tampa Bay tonight and in Montreal tomorrow, and Vasilevskiy will be out for both games. So,
hey, Tony, how good has Tampa been of late? And to know that they played the same amount of games and they're 1 point ahead of the Canadiens, and everybody talks about the immaturity and the inexperience of the Canadiens and their inconsistency. They have almost a regular NHL player missing on each one of their lines. They have a stabilizing player on defense in Caden Gooley missing, all of them with long-term injuries. And there's no flexibility based on the way you just described the standings to do much on the trade market to stem the tide, okay? All in all, it's pretty good, and that it re-emphasizes the point. If they go 500 over the month of December, they put themselves in a real good spot to accomplish their goal.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I agree with you on that. We're going to talk about a couple of real good performances as well. Not before we talk to you about some of our sponsors. Once again, Canadiens will host the Tampa Bay Lightning tomorrow. Go all the way with Betway. Get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in details section to create an account. Redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. Must be 18 years of age and older. And please play responsibly. Eric's at the Board of Governors meetings in Colorado Springs. Speaking of gambling, one of the things on the agenda actually is talking to the coaches about gambling in hockey and sports betting and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard about it personally, but it doesn't surprise me in the wake of the NBA scandal that broke out. You know, they've certainly addressed the players on this. They have to address the coaches, and every major stakeholder in the game needs to be aware of just how much they're flirting with disaster if they're involved in any respect in gambling on the sport. So, you know, look, the doors to Pandora's box were opened.
Yeah,
with
a couple of big performances. Couple of big performances, Eric, on the weekend. I thought Dobson was really strong in both games. There was a goal there by Buchnevich where we talked about the man-to-man, the hybrid, and at one point he leaves his man for a second, and then Buchnevich goes backdoor. Okay, offense, but he was unbelievable, I thought, on Saturday night, forming a duo with Mike Matheson versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Totally stifled their stars. And yesterday, offensively speaking, it was very, very good for the Canadiens. So I thought it was a big weekend for Dobson, and I thought it was a big weekend for Lane Hutson, who scored, like, just what a beautiful goal he scored yesterday.
So let's start with Dobson. I want to talk about Lane too. Let's just start with Dobson. Okay, if he plays 24 minutes in a game, just know there's going to be 30 to 45 seconds of it where he does a couple of things that you're just scratching your head about. Okay, he's not a perfect player. Nobody is. And this is a game of mistakes, and hopefully he recovers from them or somebody helps him out when he makes them. It's just a feature of his game. I don't think it's a one-off or this or that. There are certain times where Dobson will make a decision after he's beat someone that's a perplexing one, and you just say, okay, you know, like, I'm not sure where that came from, but he recovers quickly and he doesn't dwell on it. I think he's been really good for the Canadiens in his first year with them so far. You know, the matchup is difficult every night for him and Matheson. If their play has dipped a little bit, which it certainly has based on the underlying numbers, it's also related to the other 3 guys they're on the ice with in any given situation, often with Suzuki's line, but other guys too. There were times where Suzuki's line with Bolduc on it obviously wasn't performing to the level that people would have expected with Slavkovsky there. They're just in a tough matchup every single night, and there's just going to be a run of play throughout the season, whether it's this month or 2 months from now, where it dips and you're saying, okay, should they belong together as a pair? I think it's just how charged the schedule is in certain features in Matheson and Dobson's games. They're not perfect players, but the good so far outweighs the bad. And I just think we've seen a series of games from Dobson where you really just, you understand the value. And I'll tell you, speaking to some scouts and even some guys who have been in on scouting missions for Team USA and Team Canada, they're very impressed with the player and how good he has been for Montreal. So that speaks to him. You want to talk about Hutson? So do I.
Yeah.
What were your impressions of him?
I think Lane Hutson's growing defensively. Everyone talks about his offensive game. We just talked about the goal that he scored on a very good pass by Zach Bolduc, by the way, versus former team to find Lane Hutson going to the net. There was problems in coverage there for St. Louis. Just ask Logan Mailloux, by the way. And Lane Hutson with his hands in close, where he just mesmerized Jordan Binnington. We're also seeing that shot, that shot that we know that he worked on in the summer. We're starting to see it more and more. I thought Binnington made a huge stop on a blast that he had yesterday as well. But I find the way Hutson is separating the puck from the opponent this year, I find the way Hutson is defending. We already saw glimpses last year where I think he finished 32nd in the National Hockey League out of about 250 defensemen to play last year in the National Hockey League for one-on-one battles won. When you consider his size or lack thereof, it's pretty incredible. It talks to you about basically how good he is in using his stick, not only when he has the puck, but also to retrieve pucks and to take away pucks. I really like the way Hutson is growing as a player a lot. And right now, as of today, statistically speaking, he's on pace to score more goals. He's statistically on pace to score, I think, 2 less points. I think he'll score more goals. I think he's going to score more points than he did a year ago. And I think he's going to be a lot better defensively. So I'm looking for him to continue.
The Toronto game was really interesting to me. And look, as writers, give you a little bit of insight in terms of how we think about things before we go into a game or whatever it is. Always have certain storylines in mind of what could develop later on. When we go to a morning skate or we go to a media availability hotel, because there is no morning skate, a lot of the questions that are asked in the morning are somewhat preparing for something that might happen in the game that would inform whatever we end up writing about it. And, I thought it was important to ask Lane Hutson about just his comfort level in battles now. I thought Hutson would be a good person to speak to. And he's one of the people that I, among other reporters, requested to speak to Saturday morning, because I couldn't help but thinking about the last time they were in Toronto when he took the blame for a loss that I don't think really belonged to him, but he was so angry after that game. He felt he took the wrong route on a play where Matheson's stick broke and he took a jump to try to intercept the puck or put pressure on the puck, and it created a 2-on-1 where he couldn't really recover, and they scored, and that ended up being the winning goal before they popped 2 empty netters. And he was so angry after the game and just said, it's my fault. And so that was in my mind, going into Saturday's game. And look, I don't think the Habs started particularly great on Saturday night. The first 5 minutes, they were a little out of sorts. Hutson is included in that. The game that he authored after they found their legs, which was essentially after Slavkovsky took a penalty and the Leafs absolutely destroyed their own momentum with one of the worst power plays. I don't even know what they're trying to achieve on their power play. It doesn't make sense to me at all. You got Austin Matthews, who's like one of the best shooters in the world, and William Nylander is one of the best playmakers. They're both in downhill positions, and Matthews is not in a spot where he can shoot the puck, and Nylander's not in an ideal spot to be making plays to him. And I don't know what they're trying to do, but when we used to talk about how the goal of a power play is to score, but also if you're not going to score, create momentum, you can really kill your own momentum. And that's what they did. And the Canadiens just took over from that point forward. And Hutson, to me, on a night where he got 0 points, was the driving force of that takeover. Like he had the puck on his stick the entire night, and it's because he just won it. He won it in every single one of his battles. He led the game in offensive zone puck possession. He led the game in offensive zone clean zone entries, controlled zone entries. He led it in controlled zone exits. He just dominated. And I just think his defensive game from where it's come from. I remember when they played Winnipeg last year and Adam Lowry just shoved him away from in front of the net and scored. He went up against Lowry this week. He went up against Scheifele and Lowry, and he went up against Brady Tkachuk in several physical one-on-one battles, and Austin Matthews and some of the big boys of the Leafs. And the percentage at which he came out with the puck, and not only came out with it, but like applied himself physically, speaks to the growth of this player. And it's very understandable to get excited about seeing him score that goal in tight against Jordan Binnington. I know why that's the flavor of what makes him such an exciting player. But what he's doing defensively to me is proving to the world that he can overcome his biggest limitations. And the growth is remarkable. He's 21 in his second season in the league, and it's just he's going to dominate for years.
You know what? Totally agree, and love where he's going with his game. I want to bring up, if we can, the production of Canadiens players thus far this season, so we could all take a look at their numbers. Okay, so here we have it. Nick Suzuki, 32 points in 28 games, and Suzuki last year had 89 points in 82 games, so he's on pace, if not more. Cole Caufield is on an incredible pace. I think he's on a pace of 47 goals, 91 points, something like that. He's got 31 points in 28 games. We talked about who was a good weekend for. It was a great weekend, I thought, for Cole Caufield.
Yeah, he's just, how do you not love the player this guy's become? He's
who had the tying goal on his stick with 0.05 seconds left in the game, whatever it was. But
I know what Binnington was doing.
Play, and Binnington comes up with the big stop.
Who Cole is as a player is very evident to anybody who's watching him. Cole Caufield, the person, is a driving force of what will become a very successful rebuild, in my opinion. He's just the life force of the locker room. He's got beaming, smiling energy at all times. He's found his comfort level with dealing with the amount of media attention and pressure that he's under, and it just never seems to bother him. He's anybody who gets to call this guy their teammate is fortunate. I think he deserves anything he gets that's good in this league. And, I hope for him personally that he gets the call at the Olympics, even if he's not one of the players who gets to go in and be on the roster and play immediately or the lineup. I just think he's the type of guy that if it's a given that Jack Hughes is going, that's the number one guy I would want next to him. And I don't care if
I hear you.
That's too small as two guys playing together. You put them with somebody like Matthew Boldy, you're going to have a line that absolutely dominates, including against teams who are as great defensively as Canada is shaping up to be. So I just think he should be there. I don't know if he will be. Like, again, people will go crazy about whatever Bill Guerin decides. He's looking at the greatest crop of American players that there has ever been, and it runs layers deep. And so we'll see how it all shakes out. I will say this. I think we should all curb our reactions and we won't, but I think we should all curb our reactions to how these teams get assembled by the end of December and how they're named, because it's a guarantee with the way the schedule goes that each team is going to lose a couple of the players that get named to that roster.
My colleague Alexis Lavoie-Martel on the show that I do in French from Monday to Friday was mentioning at 10 a.m. was mentioning earlier today. Look, Kyle Connor is 6'1" and Jake Gensel's 5'11". They're not the most physical hockey players in the world either. Just because they're taller than Cole Caufield, who's probably about 5'8", does not make them more physical. They're not physical hockey players. But yet no one ever seems to question physicality or their lack of physicality going into a big game or a big tournament. But they bring it up for Caufield. But all Cole Caufield does is he scores goals, and he's really, really good at it. I think. By the way, he's great. Yeah. He's great in a shootout too.
You're bringing up a really good point, but it just needs to be balanced with the idea that Connor and Gensel, given their experience and the amount of consistency with which they have scored in this league and big goals, puts them on the American team already. And then, so the big question becomes, once you have those guys, do you still need a Caufield? I believe you do. Okay. And I believe that Caufield, when it comes down to push to shove, and I don't care who wants to accuse me of the bias in the situation, whatever it is, if I have one player who I want taking the final shot in a game where we absolutely need one to win it, I take him over almost any of the guys you just mentioned. And some of the other guys that are going to be on that American team, including Austin Matthews, who's, for whatever reason, a 61 goal scorer or above that. I think how many did he have in his best season? Whatever it was in the 60s.
Yeah.
He's not doing that right now. And
and by the way, Jake Gensel had a couple of 40-goal seasons and high 30s. Jake Gensel scored some goals in this league too.
Gensel's unbelievable. It's just that how many shots did Matthews have at winning the game in the Four Nations and didn't bury any of them? Like, I'm not blaming him. Like, Binnington made some unbelievable saves. It's just,
I have the stats here. A couple of years ago, Austin Matthews scored 69 goals, and 2 years before that, he scored 60.
Yeah,
Austin Matthews has 412 goals in 652 games. So
he's elite. Don't get me wrong. Okay,
elite,
best goal scorer probably in hockey for a good run there. He isn't that right now, and I just think if Cole Caufield gets into those situations, it won't take him 4 chances to bury one. He will come up with the big goal you need, and he's just done that. He's done that throughout his life. I also think that the amount of times he did it, understandably not at this level, next to Jack Hughes. I don't think Hughes and Matthews was a good combination. They ended up changing it late in the tournament. Hughes did not play his best. Everybody knows that. It's acknowledged. He also didn't belong in a winger role where he's going to be plugged on the wall too much. Kyle Connor didn't play his best and didn't end up playing in the final, which was, he was replaced by Chris Kreider, who didn't end up getting used the way you would expect him to get used if he was replacing Kyle Connor. The Americans have some relitigating to do in terms of how they run this, and yet they were still a shot away from winning. I just love that not only can Cole take that shot, Cole has proven that he can play the game at both ends of it and not prove to be a liability. He can play different roles within this and still provide scoring from lower down your lineup. And I just, whether he makes it or not on the December list, I still like his chances of being there in February based on the way this schedule runs and the health being in jeopardy of every player that could potentially participate. Him included, by the way. So.
Yeah, and the way he's playing right now, it's a big win for Cole Caufield, a big win for Marty St. Louis, a big win for the Canadiens. A couple of years ago, members of the media were saying to Marty St. Louis, Marty, you're not concerned that Cole Caufield's goal production has gone down? And Marty would say, don't look at the goal production right now. We're trying to make Cole a better player. And I think they succeeded in what they were trying to do.
I don't agree with there's one thing that there's a lot of, I've seen this in the fan base, and I don't think it's necessarily representative of like widespread opinion. But there are people that like selfishly would rather Suzuki, Caufield, whoever you want to mention. Slavkovsky's obviously going for Slovakia, but
they would rather they don't make it.
They would rather they don't make it. And to that, I would just say the Canadiens can make the playoffs this year. They're not going to win the Stanley Cup. Okay, they're not there yet. And hey, miracles could happen. Okay, but just playing the percentages here. They make the playoffs, maybe they advance through a round if they really get hot and just things are going right. But to make it all the way and win, they're not necessarily built or prepared for that. And the experience that you think, if you think denying them the experience that they would get in the Olympics, playing with some of the greatest champions in the world, would be more beneficial for the Canadiens, I think you're missing the bigger picture, which is that inevitably the Canadiens will be ready to contend for the Stanley Cup year over year. And the experience that those guys could gain at the Olympics around all the players they'd be around and just in those situations will prepare them for those moments versus,
but you see, Eric,
we need to make the playoffs this year. I mean,
that's I talk with a lot of Canadiens fans, and after making the playoffs last year, a lot of fans expect the Canadiens to make the playoffs this year. And in their minds, if the Canadiens don't make the playoffs this year, it's a setback. They want to see Suzuki, Caufield, and all these guys, and Lane Hutson, represent their respective national teams at the Olympics. They do, but they recall last year the Four Nations tourney, the break that it was for guys like Suzuki and guys like Mike Matheson and guys like Cole Caufield and guys like all those guys. And they believe that one of the reasons why the Canadiens made the playoffs is because those guys had the time off. So those who are worried about the Canadiens not making the playoffs, those are the ones who selfishly would rather that these players do not make their respective Olympic teams because they feel that if they don't, then the Canadiens will make the playoffs.
I get it.
Everyone agrees that they'll be better served, and Nick Suzuki will become a much better player being in a locker room with Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby for 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, and maybe Connor McDavid will be better for being around Nick Suzuki. I don't know. Listen, he went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year with Leon Draisaitl. Then McDavid went to the Four Nations, came out of the Four Nations, had a couple of rough games, and took his team back to the Stanley Cup final last year. Fatigue is going to hit everybody in different ways at different portions of the schedule. I just think you got to balance. If you're one of those people that thinks they're better off staying home because of the energy they reserve, like making the playoffs this year, as much as the Canadiens want that to happen, the most important element of progress for them is just maturing as a team and continuing to gain experience so that when the time comes that they're expected to win, they can put their foot on the pedal and go for it. And you cannot replace the experience these players will get being around those guys and having the opportunity to chase a gold medal. It would be maybe a different conversation if they were expected to win. But again, bring up the McDavid example and the Oilers getting, again, within a game after going the whole summer playing hockey. I mean, this is what they're in it for. They have a very short window to make their dreams come true. They should chase them.
Eric, in ending, in 1 minute, if you can, I want to bring it back up the chart with the players' numbers. All right. And we took a look at the top of the lineup with, of course, the players who picked up a lot of points. Well, we'll take a look at the bottom of that lineup, and you'll see Joe Veleno, who's got 1 goal, 1 point in 23 games. You'll see Jake Evans, who's got 4 goals, 8 points in 28 games. Josh Anderson, 5 goals, 8 points in 28 games. And Brendan Gallagher, who had 21 goals a year ago with 1 goal in 28 games. Now, it looks like Gallagher's obviously nursing a groin injury. That's what it looked like. He went back to the locker room yesterday. He decided to play through pain and decided to play the rest of the game. But my question to you is, all in all, like when you see Gallagher, Anderson, Evans, Veleno's numbers, and I know it's not the top of the lineup, and I know it's the bottom, but you need production from the bottom of your lineup too. Are you concerned and or disappointed?
Look, I think if you and I had talked before the season started about what was going to happen within that bottom 6, we would have both agreed that losing Dvorak and Armia changed the complexion of that situation. Young players pushing for spots, proving to be prepared for more than maybe people expected, like Oliver Kapanen, would have been playing necessarily more closer to that side of the lineup than where he is right now because of the injuries to Newhook, Doc, and Laine. So I think there's some natural circumstance here. It doesn't mean that these players can't be better. When I look at Evans and Anderson specifically, like Evans, I think in the last 2 games has gotten 6 zone starts in the offensive zone. Prior to that, through the first 26 games of the season, he had 12 total. You know, you talk about being able to balance things, his defensive role with a little bit of offensive production. It's a pretty damn hard thing to do when you start every single one of your shifts in the defensive zone. Veleno, who came from the outside looking in, jumping onto that line initially, you know, it took him time to get to the direct, intense style that we've seen from him of late. I think for the job that these guys are being tasked with, they're doing it. Can they provide more offensively? You would like that to happen, but it's not like the Canadiens are starving for goals. What they really need is to buckle down defensively. I saw some tweets last night about like, what's Veleno doing on the ice in a 3-2 game late? Like, you're playing back-to-back and you've got to use your players. And Veleno, from a defensive standpoint, is playing the best he ever has in his career. And I know that doesn't wash well with people who just look at the points and say, well, what's this guy really doing? And he's just skating in circles. I mean, I think it's very opaque analysis of like who the player actually is. Doesn't mean he can't be better. It doesn't mean
his game in the face-off circle is mature too. His game in the face-off circle is matured.
Solid, man. He's been doing his job. He's been doing his job. Can he provide a little more offensively? Would he provide a little bit more if Doc and Newhook were in this lineup right now? I think so, based on the way he has transitioned his game since the first 10 or so that he played with the team. Yeah. So, look, they need more in this department. I don't think the answer is out on the trade market in this department. I think it's more about those guys returning to health and certain guys being slotted in different chairs that would make their bottom 6 a little stronger. That's just my opinion.
Listen, I know we said in ending in 10 seconds, there's a few names that are floating about and people love to throw them around, but obviously Braden Shen's on the market. When we saw him last night, he's very, very good, but he's got 2 years left at 2.5 years left at $6.5 million. He's 34 years old. Yeah, and a couple of bounces landed right on his stick. You're right about that. Phil Deneau is supposedly on the market as well, as is Ryan O'Reilly. Is there one that, in your opinion, and they don't put up offensive numbers by any stretch, not at this stage of their careers, but is there one that you think is out of all of them, who would be the best fit for the Canadiens?
Yeah, the way you framed it is a good question. Who would be the best fit? Because I don't know if any of them are an ideal one. You know, like, do the Canadiens really? Yes, they need a second line center. Do any of those qualify as the ideal second line center? Not necessarily.
I don't think so either.
I don't think for what they caught. You know, you look at Phil in general. The idea of Phil coming back to Montreal is a lovely one in principle, right? Like, we know he's a better player than a guy who has just 5 points this season. We know that.
Yes.
Okay. But there's a $6 million price tag next to his name through this year and next year. And LA's in a situation where they're going to be dollars in, dollars out. And, you know, they're not going to want to eat money on his contract, but they're going to want to take an NHL player back because they're not exactly throwing in the towel on their season. And if you look at the Ontario Reign, there's no up and coming forward that's taking Deneau's spot and making them markedly better based on some of the stuff he does. For the fact that he's only produced 5 assists and that he's not in the minus this season based on how heavy his defensive deployment is, it tells you that he's not just falling off a cliff. He's certainly not as bad as those numbers suggest.
Yeah.
But is he the answer here in Montreal with that price tag and what you're kind of, I understand they have space, but I think it's a question they have to ask themselves if they're, you know, I don't doubt that potentially they'd inquire on what it would take. But like, you know, even Ryan O'Reilly, who I think nixed a trade to go to Canada last year, and I don't know that necessarily come here. And I don't know, even though he's having a decently productive season in Nashville, if he's the answer as a stopgap solution for the Canadiens. I'm going to surprise some people here. I understand it's the biggest need on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Gorton and Hughes will have a level of patience on filling out this role so that they don't make the move just to patch a hole. You know,
I agree with you.
They're
not going to make a move for the sake of making a move. I agree with you.
Their biggest interest will be in having a player come in that fills that role, not only for now, but for the future. And if they can't find that as a stopgap, they'd be looking for someone who really has pedigree as like the number 2 guy, like not a guy who's like, well, he's probably a third liner on most teams, but maybe he could play on the second line with, you know, I'm not saying they won't do it. I just think they're going to think long and hard before giving up all kinds of assets to do something like that. You know, I said at the beginning of the year, Tony, I was a big believer that if Pittsburgh was bad and the Canadiens were good, the chances of getting Crosby would be significantly much higher than most people would assume.
Yeah.
I think that's out the door for this season. It doesn't mean it's out the door for next season.
Penguins are playing good, picking up points.
I look at the number 1 guy I would want to acquire as a short-term and long-term solution. Bo Horvat is the name that keeps coming back to me. And New York Islanders are very competitive and wanting to be competitive. And I think Matthew Darche coming in there didn't want to just tear up things before getting a real close look under the hood. And it's important for them to be competitive to their ownership, I believe. So I don't know if that player would ever become available. Who else is really out there that you look at and say, this guy's the best fit with the Montreal Canadiens? I think they've got Hage coming up. They've got Zurovsky coming up, and their patience will be rewarded unless they find someone who they could look at and say, you know what? This guy is the ideal fit. So that hole might go unpatched between now and the end of the season. I don't think people should be shocked about it if it does.
No, and we do know that teams pay a hefty price if they want a second-line centerman or even a third-line centerman at trade deadline, and most of those deals, most of them, traditionally have been done in the offseason.
Or even a third-line winger, right? Like I was just to close here, like I think Kiefer Sherwood would be a great fit with Montreal. He'd be a great fit with a lot of teams that are looking for that bite, for that scoring, but in a lot of ways, Kiefer Sherwood, and I'm not directly comparing them, reminds me of like the Dale Weiss situation in Montreal a few years back.
Yeah.
You know, like who's going to be the team that gives up a Philip Deneau plus a pick to get a guy who's scoring at a kind of an unsustainable rate based on his previous career numbers? And I think Sherwood has a 19-goal season. So again, the comparison dies a bit on Dale Weiss there. But it's just saying you're paying a premium for a player who's producing at a rate that's higher than his normal rate at his age based on what he's done. He's a late bloomer. He's beyond a late bloomer at this point. It's an interesting dynamic, and it just made me think of Weiss and like, will the Canadiens be the team that gives up the type of asset value that guy will have before signing a deal that probably doesn't fit with where he's going to be as a projection as a player over the next 3, 4, 5 years as an unrestricted free agent? This is stuff that needs to get weighed as we approach, the trade deadline. And it's far away right now, but it'll creep up on us pretty quick, and some movement will start to happen in the next, probably as we come out of the Christmas holidays and venture into January. So it's something to keep an eye on. I just don't think any of those centers you mentioned, or even a winger like Sherwood, you're going to pay the premiums right now based on where the Habs are at.
I don't think they will. Thank you, Eric. Very much appreciated, and I agree with you on this one. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
There you have it. Eric Engels of Sportsnet. Marinaro, I got some stuff on Montreal Canadiens prospects in just a minute, but not before I talk to you about introducing the Slush Buster. And check it out at slushbuster.ca. And no, it's not a slush puppy. It's a slush buster. What are we talking about? It's the new innovative snow brush that everywhere I go, people are stopping me and saying, Tony, do you have a slush buster in your car or in your truck? And I say, yes. And I pull it out, and they see it and they're like, okay, so what makes this slush buster pretty special? And I'm like, well, first of all, it's made of quality materials. Secondly, it's very, very solid. Third, you can scrape the ice like better than any other snow brush that's out there. Fourth, the opposite end of the brush is you almost have like this big club that you can actually put in between the spokes of your tires to get that ice out of there that gets cut up, of course, in the tires and in between the tires and the frame, of course. And you get all of that out. And slushbuster.ca is the website. It's an innovative snow brush designed to tackle winter's mess with ease. From heavy slush to stubborn ice, the Slush Buster clears it all quickly, keeping your car clean and your hands dry, smarter, stronger, and built for Canadian winters like only the Slush Buster can do. You have to check it out. It is an amazing, amazing snow brush. Also, speaking of which, do we have a Christmas gift or something? Do we have it? We have it. Do we have one that we can show here or what? Didn't we have a video that we could show? Because this is a perfect Christmas gift. Didn't we have the video? Where's the video exactly? So people could actually see the Slush Buster without just me talking about it. But you have to. It's a great. Listen, Christmas is around the corner, and sometimes the best gifts, you don't have to shell out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Sometimes the best gifts, it just, you know what? Check it out at slushbuster.ca. But if you don't have, and you got to go to it, and you'll check it out. And you'll be able to see it for yourselves. And once again, I'm on the website right now. And the product is, it'll give you an idea. You can actually take a look at it, and you can see what it looks like. We have the video. Well, then play the video. You have the video. Play the video. There you have it. Look at that. Look at that. Huh? Foam grips. Tough, ready for winter. Order now. It'll cost you on the internet and Slush Buster with everything included. I think you're looking at about $36, $37 and change. It's a big make for an awesome Christmas gift. Once again, I talked to you about Canadiens prospects. Alexander Zavrosky, rookie of the week in the KHL. Great news for Michael Hage. 27 Canadian players have been invited to training camp for Canada's World Juniors, which will take place in Niagara Falls. And Michael Hage will be one of those players. Unfortunately for Bryce Pickford, he was left out. And there you have all your Montreal Canadiens news. Tomorrow is game night. The Montreal Canadiens will host the Tampa Bay Lightning in what will be a 4-point game. That's one of those games that you want to win, and you want to win in regulation. For Alexis Lavoie-Martel and Sammy and Yellow Cavallaro and everyone at Master Control, special thanks to all of our sponsors and Eric Engels. In all transparency, this podcast was recorded a little bit earlier in the evening. Eric is in Colorado Springs. They're in Mountain Time 2 hours before, but he had a long morning, has a long afternoon, and will have a long night of work ahead of him. So we did it per Eric's convenience, and we're able to get it in, and we hope that you enjoyed it very, very much. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow morning en français. le Sick Podcast de 10h à midi sur la même chaîne YouTube. And, of course, I'll be back tomorrow night right after the hockey game between the Canadiens and the Tampa Bay Lightning. My guests should be Pierre Maguire, Maxime Lapierre, and Brian Wild. Talk to you then. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. Bittt, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.